Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses live here on the YouTube channel. And good evening to those of you watching with us live and commenting in the comment section. Be sure to get involved throughout the show, as on tonight's live episode we look back at Neil Warnock's first game in charge, which ultimately ended in defeat at Ibrox, the Dons going down 2-1 after a couple of goalkeeping mistakes, which we'll come into, of course. And also later on in the show, we'll preview the upcoming game at the weekend as the Dons hit the road back to Hampden, but Bonnyrigg are the visitors to Pittodrie. We'll be previewing that Scottish Cup tie and kind of looking at what now for Neil Warnock after the game last night, is probably the real pressure starts in a run of games where wins will be expected from the fans. But Calum, let's take a look back at last night. First and foremost, what was your initial full-time thoughts? Because the game ended in defeat, but I think there's reasons to be positive from it. Is that fair?
I think so. I mean, we didn't get battered, so that's a good start. I think had we not changed managers, that might have been different. I think I was disappointed to not have come away from the game with something. Not least because of the refereeing decisions, which we'll come on to, or maybe it's VAR more to blame, I guess, last night rather than the referee on field. But I was disappointed that we didn't get anything from the game. I think there is reasons to be encouraged. However, some reasons on display to be discouraged also, which we will also come on to. And I'm sure a lot of you probably can already tell what I'm hitting at there.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, being an Aberdeen podcast, there's going to be a lot of bias towards an Aberdeen opinion. Of course, trying to even it out because of the unbelievable bias we saw last night on Sky Sports news coverage, even in Kenny Miller in particular. But we'll take a look at the team news before we get into the action, first of all, Calum, because we tend to look at the team news on the podcast. And just two changes from the team that started the weekend draw over Celtic. Johnny Hayes making a return to the team in place of Dante Polvara, and Killian Phillips put on the bench, and Leighton Clarkson preferred behind Bojan Miovski instead of the on-loan Crystal Palace midfielder. I think probably a surprise to most to see Johnny Hayes put into the team, but I'm assuming that was Neil Warnock's attempt to install width into the team, because that was definitely an area he noted as us being weak in. I mean, I think we've all fucking noted that this season.
Yeah. Also, as well as with perhaps a bit of experience as well, Warnock strikes me as the type of man that enjoys a bit of experience in his side. And to be honest, other than the slip in the build-up to the Rangers' first goal, I actually thought Johnny Hayes came in and did pretty well. I thought he helped out Jack McKenzie a lot down that left-hand side. To be fair, when you're up against sort of Tavernier, a lot of your work is probably going to be going back the way just because of the way he plays, how much he bombs forward. And I thought Johnny dealt with it pretty well. I don't know. I wasn't sure whether Phillips or Clarkson was going to start. For me, from what we saw from both of them last night, maybe they got that one slightly wrong. Not a lot coming off for Clarkson, but at the same time didn't get a lot of chances to sort of wave that magic wand of his. However, it was sort of 6 and half a dozen, really. But when Phillips came on, I was certainly impressed with how he put himself about. But from an Irishman at Ibrox, I suppose you'd expect little to no less.
Yeah, I think he does like to put himself about. I think that's slightly harsh on Leighton. I don't think he kind of did too much wrong, and just I know like
He was
a couple.
quiet. He was quiet.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, I mean, first half especially, we were quiet before we come on to the first goal. Obviously, a point that Paul Donaldson makes in the comment about the fact that the second half performance was decent, but worrying we only seem to be able to play well for 45 minutes at a time. And wondering if Neil Warnock can work out how to get us playing our best for 90 minutes. And I guess, as I said, coming into the weekend and the run of games that we've got coming up, especially with a heavy run of home fixtures, that's definitely something that Neil Warnock's going to probably want to get out of this team.
I think so, and I suppose given the last sort of two fixtures, it'll be very different tests in the remaining games up until the split. Pretty favourable run up to the split now that we don't have to play Hearts, Celtic, or Rangers, and the fact Hibs is at least at home as well, considering
Mm-hmm.
we just can't win in Edinburgh. It seems like, so I'm sure Warnock will get it together a little bit, and we said it prior, and he even said in his interviews, or alluded to it anyway, that he didn't have much time to have any bearing on it. One sort of training session.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, now a decent few days going into the Bonnyrigg Rose game at Pittodrie should be a decent crowd as well.
Mm-hmm.
We'll maybe see a little bit more of that Warnock influence.
Yeah, maybe, and I wonder going into the weekend's game if we'll see changes based on performances. Last night you weren't impressed by Leighton Clarkson, or quiet, sorry, and not to,
Get right.
yeah. One area of the pitch I'm sure fans will be quickly looking at when the team sheet comes out on Saturday. Will Ross Doohan make his competitive debut for the Dons? I mean, if he doesn't make his competitive debut on Saturday, how shite must he be? Because when you go to places like Parkhead and Ibrox, or play opposition that it's naturally going to be a harder game, what you do not need is players gifting goals to the opposition. And the first goal just seems to be like a catalogue of mistakes. Johnny Hayes, obviously, as you mentioned, having the slip. Whether that distracts Kel Roos or not, but Jesus Christ, the shot is so tame. He could have probably stopped it with his foot, let alone fallen down and caught the ball. The fact he even feels the need to parry it for me is of huge concern. But if you're going to do that, please don't fucking parry it straight to the oncoming Rangers player. Parry it as wide as possible. And I know some people picked up on the fact that I think, is it Nicky Devlin, or in that situation was maybe caught on his heels. But I mean, fuck me, Nicky Devlin's not going to be expecting his keeper to parry that sort of shot. Question marks undoubtedly are going to be asked of Kel after that.
Once again, you could probably forgive it if it was sort of a one-off. The fact there was two pretty similar goals in the same game, and it's not his first nonsense in a while. Take back to the St Johnstone game, certainly. He seems to have a serious problem, and I don't understand what's going on with him. He looked so good when he came back from injury last season, and now it seems to be most weeks. Not every week guaranteed, but most weeks there is something. I suppose in the Dundee game as well, when he was dilly-dallying on the ball and then hoofed it off one of their players as well. It's a concern, and I saw it mentioned on Twitter, and I think it's probably worth mentioning on here. Does the question marks maybe need to be asked of Craig Sampson, because Joe Lewis went rapidly downhill under his stewardship, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the same with Keller Roos, or do you have another theory perhaps why, Glen, maybe things are going downhill?
Yeah, well, obviously with the Dutchman being out of contract in the summer, there's rumours he's been talking to Hibs. Kind of makes sense now with the news coming out of Hibs and the money that they've come into. Maybe there's a decent financial offer that's coming up. Maybe thinking about the impending birth of child number 2. And speaking to other clubs, maybe his head's not in the right space just now. And the comment on screen from Kaiser said months ago that Roos needs dropped. That's now 12 goals this season he's been at fault for. I'm trying to work out the goals that make up the 12 that Kaiser mentions. But I do agree with the last point there. We win that game last night if he's not playing well. Maybe not win, but I don't think we certainly lose the game if Roos isn't playing. But you just need to look back at the St Johnstone game. I think we win that game if it wasn't for Kyle Roos's rush of blood. Question marks for me as well around the Dundee equaliser in that game. Although saying that, if he has confidence and claims both those crosses, we're probably not speaking about Neil Warnock being manager right now.
I suppose that's very true. And you mentioned we'll be keeping a keen eye on the team sheet on Saturday to see if Ross Doohan gets a chance. I hope the new head of recruitment is keeping a keen eye on the free agent goalkeepers on Transfermarkt. That's what I hope at the moment.
Yeah, well, I'm glad Kyle Roos has made it easily identifiable the first area that the new head of recruitment needs to be researching anyway. But as Dart says, he's really putting himself in the shop window for the summer with some of his recent performances. And Sam Gordon suggesting Mitov from St Johnstone, a keeper that's impressed this season, as a possible replacement. And I wonder if Benjamin Seagrest could be tempted away from Celtic. Obviously, he impressed at Dundee United and has just sat on Celtic's bench for a long time, picking up a nice healthy pay packet at the same time. So, certainly looking domestically, there's a couple of options there before we even look at mad Balkan bastards that I know people would love us to fill our team with.
Certainly. I mean, the two goalkeepers there, I was really impressed with Mitov when we played St Johnstone just recently. Benjamin Seagrist was fantastic at Dundee United, and then hasn't played at Celtic. Maybe he thinks it's time after picking up that healthy wage to go and play, because he's sort of getting up. I think he's early sort of 30s just now, coming into the prime of his career as a goalkeeper, or in the prime of his career as a goalkeeper. Maybe he's thinking it's time to go and play somewhere, and this would probably be a pretty good spot for him. I saw mentioned Thomas Vachlik on Twitter as well. Previously worked with Warnock at Huddersfield Town, went to USA, New England Revolution, didn't really work out for him, but been on the books at Basel, Sevilla, Olympiacos, out of contract. I mean, be rude not to ask the question, you feel like, at least until the end of the season, no? And another Czech Tomas in goals. Who wouldn't love it?
It's funny though, because I saw someone say, well, we're not going to take a goalkeeper who's out of contract because they're not going to be match fit. Does a goalkeeper really need to be match fit? Maybe just for sharpness, but does
Just
that
chuck
really
himself
matter?
on the deck in the back garden a few times and get up quickly, he'll be fine.
Speaking of Czech Thomas's, I remember seeing Thomas Cherney's Instagram. I think he was at Pataudry on Saturday, and we're undefeated when he's featured on Red TV. I can't believe they didn't wheel him out last night. No offense to Lee Mayer, who was coming in for Steve Tosh in the co-com seat, but that's a nice little superstitious stat. But an interesting comment, and I'm sure one that's been discussed a lot as well from Dan D. Roos's best spell coincides with having a decent keeper in Jay Gorter on the bench, pushing him. Of course, Jay started for a period of time when Kyle Roos was injured last season. And then we kind of saw the back end of last season, the penalty save against Hibs sticks out in what was kind of almost pivotal in that kind of run in the end of last season. Again, does that kind of look at the weakness on the bench? I don't want to criticize Ross Duhan too much because we've not seen him to be able to judge it, what he's like. But what does it say if on Saturday Ross isn't given at least a chance to show what he can do?
Yeah, it would probably say quite a lot. Yet I would also do hark back to the not so glowing reviews from Forest Green Rovers fans when we signed him.
Yeah, or another stretch, Brogan Coates saying Bonnyrigg's the perfect time to get Tom Ritchie a first team start. Can't remember the last time we played a youth keeper, and Skokesker is backing that comment up as well. But with the greatest of respect to Tom Ritchie, the Scottish Cup is our last opportunity to win silverware this season. We do need to be giving this game as much respect as possible. So I guess interesting to see where we go in terms of selection going into it.
It is, but then I suppose the same with the greatest respect, but then also you could potentially be given a chance to Ross Duhan, who's not played at all. So it's sort of 6.5 dozen, but I suppose Ross Duhan has been making the bench over Tom Ritchie. But yeah, one to keep an eye on, and I sort of wouldn't be against at least one of the other two getting a chance in this cup game, just because you would like to think it can't be much worse than just parrying it straight out to their oncoming forwards.
Yeah, which we do a lot. In terms of the rest of the first half, it was very much defense versus attack, as we kind of struggled to get much going in the final third. And on the rare occasion that we did, we lacked that quality with the final ball. One kind of that sticks out was the counter attack where Johnny Hayes tried to play a ball in front of the defence and failed to beat the first man. But how did you think we coped defensively with the onslaught of pressure we faced for large periods of that first half? Do you think we coped well, or can we be relieved at some of the poor finishing from Rangers?
Slightly relieved, I think, but on the whole, I thought the defence were pretty good. And to be honest, when you go down, well, what to be honest, when Aberdeen go 1-0 down against anyone in the first 10 minutes, you expect it to at least half expect it to capitulate. So I was quite impressed that we stayed with them, we stayed in the game. I thought the defence more than held their own. Unfortunately, in terms of holding on to the ball, and once the defence had done their job, there was very little of that. And we mentioned about getting Boyan's service. We did eventually. However, in a game like that, to stand a chance, we need to be giving him more opportunities. We didn't, but thankfully he took the one that he did get the chance.
Yeah, he did. And in terms of the defence, I think we were really resolute. I thought Nicky Devlin coped well enough, certainly up against a pace merchant like Rabbi Matondo in that first half. And his poor crown jewels, if they weren't bruised enough from Saturday, they got another damage in the second half. So he's certainly putting his body on the line. If I know people have been a bit critical at him for the goals, you can't say he's not putting in everything on the line for Aberdeen at times.
Always putting his body in harm's way, all right. On a cold night, you imagine, down there too. Can't have been fun.
Yeah, hope his missus isn't wanting kids anytime soon because it'll be a while.
Right.
But a player that's kind of come in for criticism, is it fair to say, or maybe questioning whether or not we should be looking to sign him on a more permanent basis if the option arises, is Stefan Gartenmann. Paul Donaldson saying Gartenmann has been poor the past few matches, but he was a lot better last night. I'm sure he woke up with a sore head this morning because he seemed to head absolutely anything that came in his direction. And for me, he was probably the standout in that defence. And I think, as I kind of mentioned, given maybe how shaky he's been previous.
Yeah, I think so. I was impressed with Jensen as well, to be fair, because I've not been impressed with him in recent times either. But I thought as a pair, collectively, they were. They looked a lot better. They looked comfortable. They knew what they were doing. They knew their role, and I thought they did it very well. Because, as I said, you could have expected us to capitulate otherwise. And I think without them, we probably would have.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose, given the pressure that we absorbed for pretty much the majority of that first half, I don't know if many of us could believe our luck that we were actually going in at halftime 1-1, and Bojan Miovski with his 20th goal of the season in all competitions. And it's really a goal all down to the work of Bojan Miovski, because, I mean, whether Connor Barron means that assist or not, if it's just a hopeful hike over the top, but credit to the North Macedonian once again, and he just swats Connor Goldson aside, doesn't get bullied by him, doesn't get put off by the onrushing Jack Butland as well. Cool, calm, very collected, and nonchalantly slots the ball home. Bedlam in the away end.
He's incredible, isn't he? Whether Barron meant it, it was brilliant. If it was just pure luck, either way, I don't mind. It came off, but Bojan Miovski, what impressed me most wasn't even the finish. It was holding off Connor Goldson. He's a fucking big lad, and he just held him at arm's length almost with absolute ease. And then the finish was incredible too. I mean, you're sort of running out of superlatives at this point for Bojan Miovski every week. He seems to be sort of bailing us out of the shit at times. And God, let's just enjoy him whilst he's here, because by God, is he a good striker. The best I've seen maybe in my lifetime in terms of actual technical quality. Adam Rooney, obviously a very good goal scorer, purple patch from Sam Cosgrove. Outside that, we're probably struggling in fairness. But I think the best I've seen in my lifetime, that I remember anyway.
Yeah, no, I was having this discussion with a couple of guys at work, and I think obviously we show our age and maybe kind of some of the audience that listens to our show in comparison to the other Aberdeen podcasts that are out there, when we would naturally say that Bojan's the best striker since Adam Rooney. I've been supporting Aberdeen since 2002, and I try to think this some of the strikers that I've seen in that time. You've got Lee Miller, Darren Mackey, as you say, Sam Cosgrove. There's nobody that kind of sticks out as effective as Bojan, and a couple of the guys at work were saying that probably for them it's the best since Duncan Shearer, and that's a comment that is echoed by Paul Donaldson. And look, he's a striker that we have to enjoy, whilst we have him, because it does feel inevitable that come the summer, clubs will be coming in their droves. And look, we've got to count our lucky stars, and also feels a bit beggars belief that nobody tested the water in January, and whether, as Chris Boyd mentioned last night on the Sky Sports coverage, that finances potentially played a part in no club doing so in January. I for one, I'm grateful. And since we didn't do the research, Lee Seymour did it for us instead, saying he did some research last night, and 17 of Bojan's 20 goals have been responsible for a positive result or a draw like HJK Helsinki. Others in the team need to start helping the guy out. Or, as Calum puts it, we'd be in the shit without him.
I certainly think so. I know it's been a little time since you said it, but you mentioned showing our age there. I don't think it's your words that show your age, Glenn. It's your baldy head.
Yeah, well, there's that too. But look,
God.
it just shows that the absolute importance of having a goal scorer in your team, and somebody that can drag you out of a situation. You look at Livingston and Ross County, who are struggling for goals. Thankfully for us, we've got someone that we can rely on, and just
Yeah.
touch wood that between now and the end of the season he can stay fully fit. Um, on you go.
What I would mention, however, is Celtic fans, Rangers fans on Twitter are going, I can't believe we didn't sign him for 4 or 5 million. That would not have fucking got you. Let's come
Yeah,
on, let's be honest. That would not have got you. He's definitely going on to bigger and better things than Glasgow. He'll be going to one of the top five leagues, whether that's down to England or Southampton if they get promoted since Darren Mowbray's there. Or I think he's expressed desire to play in Italy at some point. I don't know if I'm making that up, but it just feels like he would hit it off over there. Yeah, get your heads out your arses. How about that?
yeah, and it's even journalists as well. It's like, oh, I can't believe Celtic and Rangers would be stupid not to buy him. He is a class above both those sides. Those sides would be lucky to have him in their team, and he's far too good to even consider going to those sides. And I was listening to the Totally Scottish Football podcast a couple of weeks ago, and Auntie Dean Joseph from Sky Sports was on, and I think the club had Celtic or Rangers bid for Bojan in January. The club were looking at 10 million for a domestic team to buy him. Would have probably accepted a little bit less from England or elsewhere, but his understanding was that was kind of the price tag Aberdeen had put on Bojan's head for any kind of domestic bid, and immediately that blows all of them out of the water. But just shows the kind of value that is on his head. And Joe Lewis last night in the coverage on Sky Sports saying the club should be looking at kind of starting at 8 million plus add-ons. I think Joe is being a bit conservative in his estimation.
Possibly. Credit, however, to Joe. First of all, he's training with Man United sometimes. That's a bit mental.
Yeah.
And second of all, for dealing with the clowns that are in the studio, just making it all about Celtic and Rangers arguing about the penalty and whatnot, rather than just and comparing it to a previous Celtic one, rather than just actually looking at what's happened in front of them.
Yeah, you said Joe Lewis's career kind of went on a bit of a decline with
Yeah.
Samson. He's training with Man United. He won't be thinking that. Um, Before we go on to the second half, just want to pick up on this point as well from Wee Dave, where he says we should be assessing potential replacements for Bojan. We'll have money to spend. Let's not just forget the money potentially coming in from Bojan Miovski. We've got the money from European football, and with some of the prices being touted around Lewis Ferguson and this 20% sell on, we have got a lot of coin that Cormac can dish out this summer for,
So,
of course, a new management team.
certainly, and perhaps I can't remember if there was a selling clause in the Ramadani deal as well. I mean, I don't know if his performances are quite what they were in sort of first half season for Lecce, but if teams still sniff around him, obviously it
Well,
won't be as much as we'd probably fetch from the Ferguson sell on. However, if there's anything, then every little helps.
well, Ramadani's also got the Euros in the summer to impress as well.
We're laughing. We are rolling in it.
Cormac has got dollar signs in his eyes permanently. In terms of the second half, then, from an Aberdeen perspective, the first 3 minutes were positive. We won a corner and tried to start on the front foot, but after that, it was pretty much as was in the first half, soaking up as much pressure. But I can't help but feel, Calum, we were doing a decent job of soaking up the pressure. Yes, to quote Ian Crocker, it felt relentless, but I don't think we were struggling. Rangers weren't creating clear-cut opportunities. Kel Roast was doing his best to give them opportunities by punching the ball back into the danger zone, but he also made a good stop with his feet as well. But
He did.
I didn't feel we were kind of being cut open at will.
No, I think Keller's had a couple of decent saves. In fairness to him, just a shame about some of the rest of it. I don't think it was a particularly good game last night. I don't think Rangers were great. Obviously, they were better than us. They won the game, whatever. That's fine. We weren't at our best. I don't think they were either. I would say, it was absolutely relentless, and we were struggling to deal with it. I thought our defenders had a very good game, and it wasn't like they were missing chance after chance after chance, like clear cut opportunities wise. Okay, Kelros pulled off some very good saves, but I think that's a bit much from Ian Crocker. Shock.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and not surprised. But the pressure did tell, and we did concede. But the first goal, I think we can apportion pretty much all the blame, in my opinion, to Kel Roos. The second one seems to have split the opinion of the support, and I'll be interested to kind of see the comments that come in on the back of this one. But for me, I'm putting the blame on Kel once again. Yes, the strike from Tom Lawrence is much better than the strike that Kel parried in the first half. But you've got to be pushing that wider. You've got to be pushing that past the post, not back within the kind of frame of the goal for Todd Cantwell to tap in.
Yeah, I agree as well. It was a much better strike in the first instance, I've got to say. And it's a good save if he beats it wide. That's the thing. If he beats it wide, it's a good save. He's just causing more problems for himself. And I think it hits him on the way past sort of as well, which, okay, yeah, very difficult to react in that sort of time frame. But just beat it wide, mate. Just beat it wide, and it would have been absolutely fine. It's just very, very frustrating. And Hey Jonky says Roos needs to stop. Roos good to stop the initial. Defence need to react to, though. Yeah, I can certainly understand that as well. However, it's always the onrushing attacker that's for, well, not always, but more than likely they're going to be first to get there. But I guess if they had reacted quicker, then we wouldn't be talking about any of this either. But it just eliminate the problem in the first place by beating it wide.
Yeah, but I think it is a fair point that Hey John Q makes, because once again, the defense is extremely flat-footed. There's no anticipation of having to follow the ball in case the keeper makes a mistake, and you'd have thought there would have been some sense of anticipation given what we'd seen in the first half. Again, Nicky Devlin involved in being one of the players that is, or was, I should say, flat-footed in that situation. A player that's played a lot of minutes for Aberdeen this season, again, down to the fact that we've got limited options to kind of give him that rest. I've seen a couple of comments around potential mental fatigue for players, and it can affect, obviously, a game like yesterday where you have to be so switched on, and you switch off for a second, you're punished. Is that something that could be factored into yesterday as well?
I guess possibly. I suppose with the first half against Celtic as well, where we weren't really in the game, that'll probably have taken a lot out of them too, both physically and mentally, without, trying to be Barry Robson and blame it all on tiredness. I suppose for guys like Nicky Devlin, you probably consider it even more so, considering how switched on he's had to be for pretty much every minute of every game so far this season. But at the same time, you've got to get yourself up for it if you're going to Ibrox, really, as an Aberdeen player.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I think the frustration was given the kind of application and effort that most of the outfield players applied during the game, and kind of the most of the pressure that they had to soak up, and how well they dealt with it. Um, it's for me frustration, given it's two goalkeeping errors that cost us even taking a point from the game last night.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I would like to give credit to them, although I'm saying they've got to stay up for it. They did do very well because I mentioned it earlier on the show. Like as soon as it goes 1-0 inside 10 minutes at a place like Ibrox, you just expect it to be an absolute onslaught, don't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think as well that we did react well to, because I did think once it went to 2-1, I thought, well, game over. But I thought Neil Warnock was proactive in his changes, and I've brought on the likes of Duke, Shaden Morris, Dante Polvara came on as well. And I thought all the changes last night had a positive impact on the game, or certainly positive in terms of going for an equaliser. We didn't make changes that were questionable to just accepting the result. And what I did like about the team, I said to you before we came live tonight, that we just started taking bodies at 2-1 down. We weren't, I mentioned the 6-0 defeat to you against Celtic again before we went live, about kind of, I think you always say we're soft as baby shite in these games, where we're getting absolutely pumped on the pitch, but nobody puts a foot in, leaves their mark. Well, Duke left his mark on Connor Goldson. Fabio Silva was touched by a feather and hit the deck on countless occasions. I didn't realise that they'd signed the Portuguese Tom Daly. But we actually put ourselves about a bit as well, created a couple of chances. I have to be honest, I was a bit frustrated at Miovski trying the fancy flick.
Yeah.
The pace was never on the ball. Could he have left it, dummied it for Dante Polvara as well? I just didn't think it needed to be fancy in that situation as well. But you can't fault the players for not being able to create once we went 2-1 down.
No, Almi obviously one. Even if he takes it in and then tries to just get a half yard to get the shot off, and then it would be difficult if he does manage to get a shot off for Butland from such close range. So many bodies between him and the goal. On the substitutes, Calum Phillips came on and applied himself. Duke and Danny Polvara both picking up yellow cards. Shane Morris, unfortunately, running the ball out for a corner, but he didn't have much time to impact the game. In fairness, one thing maybe it's minor, but didn't bring on Esther Sockler when perhaps he could have stretched them once they'd gone down to 10.
Yeah, I saw a few people mention that as well. Obviously, as you mentioned, Rangers going down to 10. Thoughts on the red card? Agree, disagree? I suppose probably the only thing I'll praise Don Robertson for doing last night was actually having the balls to stick to his on-field decision, despite Greg Aitken nailing his colours to the green or blue mast of Glasgow by calling him over to even look at that decision.
I can't believe he got called over to look at that. And honestly, full credit Don Robertson for sticking to it, especially at Ibrox. When there's 50,000 of them being for your blood to change the decision, probably can't have been easy. So credit to him for finding his spine. Red card for me all day long. Okay, he doesn't actually catch him too high, but it still studs up on his boot. And for me, the worst part was the force that he went in, flying in and completely out of control. Look where the ball is by the time he actually makes contact with him as well. It's about 10 foot up in the air. It's mental. I don't know how they decided to go and have a look at it, but credit to Don Robertson, and absolutely a red card for me.
Yeah.
If that was Shinnie, for example, they'd be calling for his head on a stick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, at first viewing in real time, I thought it was an absolute stonewall red. The first replay, I thought, this is I think, had it been the other way around, I'd have been kind of a bit raging that it was a red card, and I was like, no doubt this is going to get overturned. But I actually think the more you watch it on VAR when they slowed it down, as you said, the kind of the extension of the leg, the way his foot's up, studs showing, I was like, what are they trying to prove here? The more they showed it on VAR, the more it was a red card. So yeah, fair play to Don Robertson for sticking to it. Um, Obviously, the other kind of contentious issue that VAR didn't get involved in came just at the beginning of injury time, where Don Robertson found a mysterious free kick to Rangers. I thought potentially for a handball against Dante Polvara, even though it clearly hits his shoulder. A few people have believed it's for a push on Connor Goldson. I'll just say that push came after the handball. Of course, for one of two in the box. Thoughts on both of them? Either of them worthy of even a look? Because it didn't certainly seem that VAR looked at them.
For me, it's a penalty. However, by the letter of the law, you can. I don't know. It's difficult. 'Cause you can understand why they wouldn't want to give that, because okay, it's going to hit him in the chest anyway. But his hand's out here. It's a handball. And supporting arm, is it though? It's not supporting him when it hits it. He's falling to the ground. That one for me, certainly, more. There's a good chance that hits the back of the net. It's stopping a goal scoring opportunity. Penalty. But and also, you would probably flip it and say, if that's up the other end and that's Stefan Gartenmann's arm, what's going to happen?
Yeah, and I think whether you think that either of them are a penalty or not, I think what we want to see in Scottish football and as football fans in general is the consistency. And as Forbes McFarlane says, Hearts got the penalty against Dundee on Saturday, and I'm pretty sure the defender's arms were closer into his chest. And it was a penalty. And I did actually see an article in the Courier today. Of course, Dundee have asked for the kind of audio from the VAR incident in that penalty. But the referee has since come out and said that he wanted the opportunity to review the decision, but VAR didn't allow that because it wasn't clear and obvious to overturn the decision. So I'm wondering again, because it wasn't clear and obvious, if Don Robertson wasn't sent to the monitor. But question marks then for me would be asked why he was sent to the monitor around the Sterling red card, because it's not clear and obvious that it's not a red card. So yeah, all we want is consistency, but it's Scottish football and it's referees. We're never going to get the two of them to match up.
I think we just leave that there. I think you summed it up perfectly.
Thank you. One final thing I want to discuss from the game last night before we move on a little bit is the comment from Rob McLean on Red TV to Neil Warnock in his post-match press conference. Now, obviously, the club are currently conducting a performance review, or whatever the fuck it's called, to look into all aspects of the club's performance, and hopefully Rob McLean's performance on Red TV is being looked at, because asking the manager or telling the manager that games against Rangers and Celtic do not define our season, surely, Calum, sums up the negative mentality that is ingrained in the club at this moment in time. Because whether or not you view the games as a free hit or not, you would certainly hope that the mentality going into these games is not one that it doesn't really matter in the course of the season, because I'd almost argue that they do. If you look at the fact that the points we've even taken off Celtic and Rangers this season, we've taken 5 points off them so far this season. Teams in around us aren't as fortunate to have maybe taken as many points off Celtic and Rangers this season as us. So that is almost defining to our season, because without those points, we could be in a much worse position.
Certainly could. I would also argue that just look at last season, that win against Rangers at Pittodrie, that really did help define our season, simply. It sort of spurred us on, essentially. And without those 5 points, we'd be 1 point above the playoff place this season. So Nonsense, really. I can understand like sort of the free hit looking at these two games in particular. One right after we sacked our manager, the other one right after we've got the manager in the door. But it's a weird comment because last season a massive game against Rangers helped us hugely getting third
Mhm.
and European football and all the rewards that came with that. And this season we would be seriously in the shite without those 5 points. So, and I suppose other teams will probably take points off Celtic and Rangers as well, and we want to try and do more of that than the other sides. So it's a very odd comment in general.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this whilst I was walking the dog this afternoon, and thinking that, if when you look at teams coming up against Celtic and Rangers, you're probably thinking, well, they're probably going to lose, so we've got the opportunity to make up the ground. Although, as long as it's not Parkhead, because we've already seen the likes of St Johnstone and Motherwell go to Parkhead and pick up points this season. But for a club like Aberdeen, we should be going in with the mentality that we can compete with these sides. We shouldn't be going in with the greatest respect to other teams in the league. The mentality that whatever we get is a bonus. We should have the mentality that we can pick up 3 points going into this game.
Everyone in the league should be going into the games like that because Celtic and Rangers haven't been particularly good. Okay, Rangers have been a fair bit better since Philippe Clement came in. We've seen plenty of occasions this season so far that Celtic are not much use. They're just a little bit more use than the rest of us, essentially. But they're not world beaters, especially given the resources at their disposal. They should be a lot better than they are.
Yeah. And as Dan D says, they matter more in a tight competitive season. That's what could separate us from Hearts for third, or as you said, us in 11th place right now. But it is crucial every point. But on the point you raised it kind of earlier in the episode as well, is the fact that now we have played Rangers and Celtic and Hearts already in our pre-split allocation, and we also play Hibs in a couple of weeks' time to round off that. So between now and the split, in theory, of course, this is Aberdeen and nothing's ever easy. And we know what drum you like to beat. Remember, for those of you that have been regulars of the podcast, will remember how Calum said we were going to romp the points in October until postponements, and Barry Robson ruined that for us. The games should be favourable for Aberdeen. And as I said, certainly if you look at our next 4 or 5 fixtures, I think 4 of our next 5 fixtures are at home. It's an away trip to Kilmarnock is the away one in there. That's in all competitions because, of course, the first of those games is at Bonnyrigg this Saturday. This probably, starting on Saturday, is where Neil Warnock and these players will be judged between now and the rest of the season, because this is when us as fans will now expect positive results and 3 points, especially in the games at home.
Certainly. To be fair to myself, okay, I fucked up the October thing. However, I did highlight this sort of run up to the split as soon as the fixtures came out. Obviously, it's been a bit changed given the postponements and things. But I had the thinking that we might be a bit shit when we're in Europe. I don't think we'd be this shit. However, that's a decent chance once we're presumably out of Europe to get things going again towards the split. And that it is. You'd certainly expect us to start working ourselves up the table, which I'm kind of hesitant to say. But with someone as experienced as Warnock, with a side that, okay, maybe struggling for confidence prior to his appointment, but there's clearly quality in there. We've got arguably the best striker in the league. Probably depends who you're asking, us or Hearts fans, really. Why? There's no reason for us to not start climbing up the league. 30 points available before the split, as Paul says. We really need to take at least 20. I was thinking 21. So, either or, anything else I would be absolutely delighted with. And that would give us a chance. That would give us a chance for fourth, I'm going to say now, not third, fourth.
Yeah, I think we can all agree.
Barring complete capitulation and maybe a Lawrence Shankland injury, I think we're a bit fucked.
I mean, I think even a capitulation and a Shankland injury, we're still fucked for third. But fourth is very much attainable. Obviously, one of those games in the recent run is against Kilmarnock, who we failed to beat this season. So it'd be good to get there. And of course, as Dan D points, out of that 30 points available, we don't play any of the current top three in that run. And finally, we've got a run of home games. I'm sure, as you said, Paul said, we need to be taking at least 20 in that possible 30. I'm sure Neil Warnock's got a target in mind, and he will be setting that to the players, setting that challenge. Go out and show me that you can achieve that, and see what we can do.
I mean, you'd certainly be hoping for 6 out of the first 2 league games at home prior to going away to Kilmarnock and being through in the next round of the Cup, which 3 victories there before going away to Killie, which looks like one of the most difficult games in this run of fixtures. That's a chance to build real momentum and a real togetherness, and everyone buying into the same thing: fans, players, staff. It's a chance. It's a chance. I hope we'll take it, but at the same time, just given the way things have gone recently. But maybe this is Warnock's Barry Robson last season era. You never know.
Yeah, but I think you're right. 3 wins before Kilmarnock. That's the gauntlet that needs to be thrown down to the squad and Neil Warnock, and we need to go out and achieve that. And I totally agree that achieving those 3 wins would really kind of gather momentum, and an opportunity to really kind of galvanise the support that we could go on. Because of course that game against Motherwell is one of our final 2 games currently in hand over the rest of the league. So an opportunity to go back up above Motherwell, who of course crept above us on goal difference after their thumping of Ross County last night. And on the back of that, I've seen in the comments that I think it's resulted in Derek Adams losing his job. So could it be a quick return to management for Barry Robson up in Dingwall as well? So
God, we've still got to play them before the split as well. Oh God, imagine.
Now that would be something if Barry Robson jumped into the hot seat there.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the game against Saturday, I think the most easy answer we'll have on the show tonight, Lee Seymour saying, do you think Bojan has a good chance of winning Player of the Year?
I think he means actual player of the season,
not
like our one.
Oh, right. Because I was going to say, if he means our Player of the Year, then I mean, I don't know who the fuck else is competing with him. But it does give me a chance to advertise the raffle that we've got on the go just now. If you do want to join myself and Calum at Player of the Year, we do have a space on our table. It's £20 to enter. If you email redtintedglassespodcast@gmail.com, and we'll reply with all the information to enter and apply for your chance to win. Thank you to the 6 or 7 of you that have entered so far. It will be a great night, and Calum will probably be annoying most of the players. I can almost guarantee you that. But if he means
hiding from them, to be honest, at this rate.
If Lee does mean in terms of the Scottish Player of the Season, then for the whole league, I think he's certainly got a chance, given how bad we've been and how many goals he scored.
Yeah, but now between him and Shankland, you'd think probably.
Christ, that would. Could that end the debate between Aberdeen and Hearts fans?
I don't know. I think once Bojan's scoring 15 goals next season for Sampdoria, whoever, then that'll end the debate. But I think right now it's between those 2. So
yeah. And Rangers have appealed the red card shown to Sterling last night.
Frivolous.
Get another game on there, but who's fucking shocked at that? Anyway, Scottish Cup action returns this Saturday, Calum, as the Rosy Posy turn up at Tawdry for the first competitive meeting between Aberdeen and Bonnyrigg. I've watched Bonnyrigg 3 times in competitive action and yet to see the team I've been supporting win. Hopefully that changes this weekend. What's your hopes ahead of the game this weekend?
Comfortable, convincing win with a clean sheet in Warnock's first game with a good crowd, no sweat, no hassle. We don't have to smack them. We just have to be just cruise through it, and I just want a nice stress-free game. That would be nice. So I can enjoy my steak and black pudding pie at Pittodrie, and just have a nice little relaxing afternoon. That would be perfect. However, it's Aberdeen Football Club.
Mm-hmm.
I think my nerves are a little bit less given the fact A, it's at home, and B, we did beat Clyde. So just keep moving on from last season, please.
Yeah. Well, I reached out to Ryan Moffat, who does the media for the Bonnyrigg Rose ladies team and follows Bonnyrigg Rose men's and women team pretty much up and down the country, for his thoughts on the game, and obviously left it a bit late to actually get him on the podcast himself. So I am just reading out the direct message that he sent 5 minutes into tonight's episode. So Calum, you said obviously about this being Neil Warnock's first game. For those that haven't yet purchased tickets for the game, it's £15 for adults. The upper deck is closed. £10 I think in some areas, and £5 for under 12. So affordable pricing to get yourself along and cheer us on the road to Hampden. In terms of the away support, because I know people always like to hear what away numbers are coming up, Ryan mentioned that the supporters club, the official Bonnyrigg supporters club, have 4 buses. The community trust has 2 buses coming up, and he actually asked how many tickets they'd sold, and they've sold over 900 tickets so far.
Brilliant.
He's expecting it to be a following of over 1,000 come Saturday. That is a terrific effort. I wonder if they get 6 loyalty points for following their team up to Pittodrie.
True. I mean, the 6 loyalty points got to be an incentive now, if you've not already bought a ticket. Neil Warnock, £15, steak black pudding pie, 6 points. Get the tickets bought. But very encouraging at 900. That's, I mean, puts some of the Premiership teams to shame, really, doesn't it?
It really does. And like I said, I've seen them at the Belsley on more than one occasion, and there certainly wasn't 900 of them on both occasions, but they're a fucking noisy bunch. They know how to have a good time. So I'm sure they'll make their presence heard at Pittodrie. I asked Ryan kind of how he thinks Bonnyrigg must be feeling going into the game, saying general feeling coming out of the club is it's a game we just need to go out and enjoy. Good test for the players coming up against a top size, and they've got nothing really to lose. And Calum, I suppose that's potential kind of banana skin about it, that it is a game where Bonnyrigg don't have anything to lose and they can just go hell for leather.
That's exactly what Neil said immediately after I texted potential banana skin. I don't know. It's just, I think he's just watched Aberdeen enough over the years that sort of his mentality at all times. But it is, look, the players need to be about themselves. Don't take anything for granted. Go and put them away. Look, they're a better side than Clyde. Clyde made it difficult for us, and they probably need to learn from that, as well as for those that were there last season. Hark back to last season if they need to, and just don't go through any sort of similar fucking embarrassment again. And just be professional and get the job done. That's all I want. You don't have to smash them, nothing. Just professional, get the job done. Nice, relaxing afternoon.
Yeah, and of course, I'm pretty sure the replays are still scrapped for this round as well. So if it is to be a frustrating afternoon, of course, it will go straight to extra time and penalties if needed. Ryan goes on to say, similar for the supporters, they are coming up in hope rather than expectation, but looking forward to a day out, regardless of what happens on the pitch. They're expecting a big crowd, given, of course, it's Neil Warnock's home debut, and I'm sure those at a higher level in Bonnyrigg must have been rubbing their hands as soon as Neil Warnock was appointed, knowing that it might add an extra few hundred, if not thousand, to the gate on Saturday, which will only benefit Bonnyrigg financially as well.
Yeah, I mean, rightly so from the top dogs at Bonnyrigg Rose. They must have been absolutely delighted with that, in fairness, because had Barry Robson still been here, I'm sure the attendance would have been dwindling.
Yeah, absolutely. He mentions that they need to be defensively solid and will probably rely heavily on their keeper, who's Paddy Martin. He's been outstanding since joining the club, so hopefully he'll frustrate the likes of Miovski. I guess, we spoke about this on the last show about kind of maybe the tactics Neil Warnock kind of applies to his teams in bygone spells down in England. And I'm kind of interested to see how he approaches a game like this. Does he set up the Aberdeen team to kind of go out and get that early goal, deal with any kind of nerves that may be in the air, and not let Bonnyrigg settle into the game. I see a lot of you in the comments tonight kind of having a discussion about going two up top. You mentioned Esther Sokler not getting game in midweek. Could we see both Esther and Bojan start the game on Saturday, do you reckon?
I'd be happy with that. Esther Sokler's waiting in the wings enough, I feel like, and he's shown certainly in his small flashes that he's got something, and I think this would be a good chance to not. I'm not going to say give him a shot because he's clearly good enough to play for Aberdeen, but a good opportunity to go with that two up front at home. Him and Bojan clearly get on well off the pitch, and maybe we'll see that sort of that bond on the pitch as well. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And maybe they'll hold up another T-shirt for Rubicic. That would be lovely.
Yeah, now that he's not actually going to be out for as long as First Fearden doesn't require surgery. So the miracle of holding up the 33 shirt worked.
Wow. I mean, it looks stupid, so at least it worked.
Ryan said, in terms of the other end of the pitch, that winger Bradley Barrett is in good form at present and could ask the Dons defence a few questions. Aberdeen may also need to be wary of Lee Curry's set pieces. I'm sure, again, obviously, not to quote Barry Robson, but maybe limited time on the training pitch between now and the weekend. In terms of both a defensive setup and an attacking setup, set pieces is going to be something that Neil Warnock's going to be wanting to look at, because kind of felt certainly at times in last night's game when we had opportunities from free kicks, we kind of really struggled to create anything clear cut.
Oh, we really waste set pieces all the time, don't we? I actually said that during the game last night as well, and it does concern me. However, not going to lie, going into this game, the last thing I sort of wanted to hear was, "Watch out for this man on set pieces." That's not filling me with confidence.
And a final point saying, Big Kieran McGahey, a name that will give PTSD to most Brock supporters. And for those that remember the playoff game between the two clubs, the antics that he got up to at full time at the Belsley, he says he'll make sure the centre backs know they're in a game as well. He's a man that I hope has a miserable time on Saturday, especially.
What happened against Fraser, for those who may not be aware?
He's a little bit larger. I think he's done well to lose a lot of weight since that occasion. So was getting a very much warm welcome from the locals in Fraserburgh. And at the end of the game, which saw Bonnyrigg proceed to the playoff game against Club 42, proceeded to whip his top off, shake his belly at the hardcore home support, and do a little bit of a lap of honour around the pitch. So proper shithouse merchant, but I'm sure Broth fans will be hoping to see him have a miserable game this weekend.
Yeah, that's fair, but it's funny, and there's nothing wrong with being a little bit bigger, Glen. Fuck you.
But this sort of game is kind of the romanticised kind of game in terms of the Scottish Cup. I'm just glad that the BBC haven't picked it up for TV for obvious reasons. I don't need to go into why I'm glad about that.
We've not even said their name once this episode. Fucking hell.
I know. But look, this is where we just need the club to just go out and do the job. It's the classic. As long as we're in the hat for the next round, it's all that matters. But I'm sure Neil Warnock will be looking for some players to continue to impress and fight for that spot when we get back to league action a week tonight, actually. Valentine's night, a night under the lights at Pittodrie against Motherwell.
Wow, that'll be romantic. Hopefully it'll be another repeat of Roses are Red, Violets are Blue, Aberdeen 7, Motherwell 2. That would be nice.
It would be. But yeah, get us through into the next round of the Scottish Cup, and we can start being positive on this podcast for a change.
Woo! That'll be lovely.
I know, it will be, because there's been a lot of you tuning into the episode tonight and across the past few episodes, both on audio and here on YouTube. I think the last week alone, we've had nearly 10,000 views here on YouTube, which is pretty incredible. Just shows the appeal that Neil Warnock maybe brings to the club as well, kind of the exposure he's had. So thank you all to tuning in to these episodes, supporting the podcast, whether you've been subscribing, you're new to the channel, but also liking the videos as well and sharing it amongst your friends. But yeah, Calum, I'm sure we'll be back either on Sunday night, and we'll kind of wait and see what time the Scottish Cup draws, and obviously depending if we're in the hat or not, for when we come live next. So if you are a subscriber on YouTube and you haven't done so, get the notification bell on, and you'll be notified of all future episodes, live or not. But yeah, let's hope some positivity is coming just around the corner, Calum.
It would be nice.
It would be. So I think nice place to end it. Thanks very much for everybody for tuning in. Until next time.